The Galactic Engineering Council had seen countless civilizations develop faster than light travel. They had established clear patterns, predictable progressions, and well-documented technological advancement curves, until they met humans. High Engineer Zixtal reviewed the preliminary report for the 7th time, their secondary eyes blinking in disbelief. The data couldn't be correct. According to their observations, the species on the third planet of this unremarkable solar system had achieved spaceflight using controlled explosions. Not fusion drives, not antimatter containment fields, but actual explosions, barely contained and directed with mathematical precision that bordered on insanity. "This can't be right," Zixtal muttered, their crystalline appendages clicking against the holographic display. They achieved orbit by riding controlled bombs. "Correct, High Engineer," responded Survey Chief Venna, their bioluminescent patterns pulsing with excitement. "And that's not even the most fascinating part. They developed digital computers before achieving reliable nuclear fusion. They created a worldwide information network before mastering weather control. Their entire technological progression is backwards." Zixtal's research team had spent 3 standard cycles observing Earth before making first contact. Standard protocol dictated careful analysis of a species' engineering methodology before initiation. But humans defied categorization. "Show me their latest achievement," Zixtal commanded. The holographic display shifted to show a massive structure orbiting Earth, the International Space Station. What caught Zixtal's attention wasn't the station itself, but the countless modifications, additions, and improvisations that kept it functioning. Where any sensible species would have decommissioned and replaced such an aging structure, humans had turned it into a continuously evolving experiment in adaptation. "They call it making do with what you have," Venna explained. "Their engineers don't wait for perfect solutions. They iterate." The concept was almost offensive to Zixtal's sensibilities. Engineering was about precision, about perfect solutions derived from complete understanding. Yet here was a species that treated engineering like an organic, evolving process. First contact was inevitable. Council protocols required interaction with any species on the verge of developing faster than light travel. But for the first time in their long career, Zixtal felt uncertain about the standard approach. The day of first contact arrived with characteristic human unpredictability. Instead of following the carefully choreographed sequence of communication protocols, a human engineer named Dr. Sarah Chen noticed the Council's cloaked observation vessels through an improvised detection system she had cobbled together from radio telescope data and weather satellite feedback. High Engineer, a junior researcher, burst into Zixtal's chamber, their crystalline form vibrating with alarm. "They've seen us." "Impossible," Zixtal responded. "Our cloaking technology is based on fundamental quantum principles. They don't even have quantum computing yet." They didn't use quantum detection. The researcher stammered. "They noticed how our ships were blocking cosmic radiation and created a detection array from their existing technology. They found a way to see us using technology that shouldn't be capable of detecting our presence." That was the moment Zixtal realized they weren't dealing with just another emerging civilization. Humans didn't follow the rules of technological progression because they didn't see rules. They saw possibilities. The formal first contact ceremony, meticulously planned over 3 cycles, was rendered obsolete in less than 1 Earth day. Dr. Chen had not only detected their presence, but had managed to decrypt their basic communication protocols, not through advanced quantum computing, but through an artificial intelligence system trained on patterns in cosmic background radiation. "Welcome to Earth," Dr. Chen's message read across all Council frequencies. "We've been wondering when you'd introduce yourselves. Would you like to come down for coffee? Our treat." The casual invitation bordered on diplomatic sacrilege, but it perfectly encapsulated what made humans unique. Where other species saw immutable laws and rigid protocols, humans saw guidelines and opportunities. Their engineering wasn't limited by what should be possible. It was driven by what could be possible. As Zixtal prepared for an unprecedented emergency landing at the Human Space Center in Houston, they realized that the Council's standard first contact protocols were about to undergo significant revision. After all, how does one follow protocol with a species that treats the impossible as merely improbable? The descent through Earth's atmosphere was surprisingly smooth, though Zixtal couldn't help but notice how the humans tracked their ship with everything from advanced radar arrays to amateur astronomical telescopes. Every human with a computer or smartphone was watching, recording, analyzing. Their collective curiosity was as impressive as it was unnerving. Dr. Chen met them on the landing pad, a cup of the promised coffee in her hand, and a tablet computer displaying real-time analysis of the Council ship's technology. She didn't seem awed by their advanced technology or intimidated by their alien appearance. Instead, she looked excited. "Your quantum field manipulation for the cloaking device is fascinating," she said by way of greeting, having already adapted to their communication frequency. "We have some ideas about improving its efficiency by about 300% using a variation of our metamaterial research. Want to compare notes?" Zixtal's crystalline form vibrated with a mixture of shock and revelation. The Council had come to guide an emerging civilization, but they might have instead found something far more valuable, a species that could teach them how to think differently about the very nature of engineering itself. The age of human engineering was about to begin, and the galaxy would never be the same. 6 months after first contact, humanity's integration into the galactic community was proceeding at an unprecedented pace. Dr. Sarah Chen had been appointed as Earth's representative to the Galactic Engineering Council, though her unconventional approaches frequently left her alien colleagues both impressed and disturbed. The Arcturus Station crisis changed everything. Arcturus Station was the pride of the Galactic Engineering Council, a mammoth structure serving as a hub for 15 different species and housing over 2 million souls. The station's quantum core, which powered everything from life support to artificial gravity, was considered a masterpiece of engineering perfection. Until it started failing. The emergency alert reached Earth during one of Dr. Chen's regular consulting sessions with High Engineer Zixtal. The quantum core's containment field was degrading at an exponential rate. According to all known physics, they had less than 72 hours before catastrophic failure. The evacuation would take at least 15 days. Zixtal's crystalline form pulsed with distress frequencies. "Even with every available ship in the sector, we cannot move 2 million people in time." Dr. Chen studied the technical readouts, her eyes scanning through lines of data that would have taken other species' computer cycles to process. "Send me there," she said simply. "The station's safety protocols have initiated lockdown," Zixtal objected. "No ships can approach within 10,000 kilometers due to the quantum field instability." Chen's lips curved into what Zixtal had learned to recognize as a smile. The expression humans made just before they did something that defied conventional wisdom. Who said anything about ships? 20 minutes later, the council chamber watched in horror as Chen explained her plan. She wanted to use the station's own degrading quantum field to teleport a small team directly inside. "Impossible," declared Senior Engineer Klovax of the Rigelian Science Directory. "Quantum teleportation through an unstable field would scatter your atoms across 3 star systems." "Only if you follow conventional quantum mechanics," Chen replied. She pulled up a series of equations on her tablet. "But what if we treat the degrading field not as a barrier, but as a carrier wave?" The concept was so absurd that 3 council members had to recalibrate their translator matrices to ensure they were understanding correctly. Chen was proposing to surf the quantum instability itself, using the very phenomenon that threatened the station as a transport mechanism. "It's like riding a tsunami," she explained, using a characteristically human analogy that required another round of translator adjustments. "Yes, it's incredibly dangerous, but if you understand the wave dynamics, you can use its power instead of being destroyed by it." The council chamber erupted in objections, each member explaining in detail why the laws of physics made such an approach impossible. Chen listened patiently, then did something quintessentially human. She went ahead anyway. The human emergency response team she had assembled was equally unconventional. Instead of quantum physicists, she chose deep-sea welders, mountain rescue specialists, and what she called practical engineers, people used to solving problems with whatever tools were available. "The station's systems are failing," she explained to her team. "We won't have access to advanced tools or conventional solutions. We need people who can think on their feet and work with what they find." The teleportation attempt was scheduled for what would have been dawn in Houston, Texas. Chen's team had cobbled together their equipment from a seemingly random collection of Earth technology: modified mining lasers, repurposed satellite components, and something called a jury-rigged quantum fluctuation rider that bore an unsettling resemblance to a surfboard. As the council watched through emergency feeds, Chen's team positioned themselves at the calculated entry point. Their equipment, a hybrid of human improvisation and alien technology, hummed to life. "Remember," Chen's voice crackled through the comm system, "we're not fighting the quantum instability. We're going to dance with it." The moment of teleportation was both more and less spectacular than expected. There was no flash of light, no dramatic special effects. One moment, Chen's team was in the council chamber. The next, they were inside Arcturus Station's core chamber, riding the quantum fluctuations like solar wind. What followed was 3 days of what Chen later described as extreme engineering. The team discovered that the quantum core's containment field wasn't failing, it was evolving. The perfect engineering that had gone into its creation had paradoxically become its weakness, unable to adapt to subtle changes in the underlying quantum fabric of space. The solution, when they found it, was characteristically human. Instead of trying to perfect the containment field, they introduced controlled imperfections, quantum release valves that could flex and adapt to changes in the field. They used maintenance robots to install modified Earth satellites around the core, creating what Chen called a quantum pressure relief system. "You deliberately made it imperfect," Zixtal asked during the debriefing, their crystalline structure vibrating with confusion. "We made it resilient," Chen corrected. "Perfect systems are brittle systems. The most durable structures in nature are the ones that can bend without breaking." The council spent the next 3 cycles studying the modifications Chen's team had made. They violated 16 different principles of quantum engineering, ignored at least 12 fundamental laws of physics, and by all rights, shouldn't have worked at all. But they did work. Not only had the station been saved, but the core was now operating at 130% efficiency. The imperfections Chen's team had introduced had somehow made the whole system more stable, more adaptable, and more powerful. "I believe," Zixtal announced in the following council session, "we need to revise our understanding of what constitutes proper engineering. The humans have shown us that there might be more than one way to solve a problem." Chen just smiled and sipped her coffee. She was already thinking about how to upgrade the rest of the station's systems with what she called engineered imperfection. After all, in her view, the best solutions were often the ones that everyone else thought impossible. The success at Arcturus Station had unexpected consequences. Within months, the Galactic Engineering Council found itself flooded with requests for human consulting teams. Species that had been engineering starships and megastructures for millennia were suddenly eager to learn from a civilization that had achieved spaceflight using controlled explosions. The Council's annual engineering conference, traditionally a formal affair of carefully presented theoretical papers, had been transformed by human participation. Dr. Chen's latest presentation drew the largest crowd in the conference's 12,000-year history. "The problem," she explained to the packed auditorium, "isn't that we break the rules. It's that we don't accept that they're rules in the first place. We see them as guidelines, suggestions, or challenges to overcome." The holographic display behind her showed the latest human innovation, a propulsion system that somehow achieved faster-than-light travel by technically remaining motionless. The ship didn't move through space. Instead, it folded space around itself in a way that even the Council's most advanced physicists hadn't thought possible. But it violates the Kardashev principles of space-time manipulation, protested senior engineer Klovax, who had become something of a friendly rival to Chen since the Arcturus incident. Only if you read them literally, Chen replied. The principles state that you can't exceed the speed of light within normal spacetime. So we don't. We just reshape spacetime itself. It's like, instead of trying to run faster than someone else, you make the finish line come to you. The analogy sparked a wave of confused translator recalibrations throughout the audience, but the underlying concept was revolutionary. Humans hadn't broken the laws of physics. They'd just found a way to work around them. In orbit around Mars, a joint human-alien engineering team was constructing a terraforming facility using principles derived from Earth's carnival rides. The massive structure used centrifugal force, magnetic fields, and what the human engineers called glorified merry-go-round physics to process the Martian atmosphere 1,000 times more efficiently than conventional methods. But not everyone was comfortable with humanity's growing influence. A faction within the Council, led by the traditionally minded Vixnary species, began raising concerns about the long-term implications of human engineering practices. They're teaching our young engineers to disregard established principles, argued Chief Engineer Maxtel of the Vixnary Science Academy. Their methods are unpredictable, untested over geological timescales. The risks are incalculable. The debate came to a head during the development of the Pan-Galactic Transport Network. The project aimed to connect 12 major galactic arms with instantaneous transport capabilities, but conventional engineering approaches had hit a wall. The energy requirements were simply too massive to overcome. The human solution, proposed by a team led by Dr. Miguel Ramirez, was characteristic of their species' approach. Instead of trying to generate enough energy to power the network, they suggested using the galaxy's own rotation as a power source. The Milky Way spins at about 828,000 kilometers per hour, Ramirez explained to a stunned council session. That's an enormous amount of kinetic energy just waiting to be tapped. We don't need to generate power. We just need to borrow it for a fraction of a second. The proposal was simultaneously brilliant and terrifying. It would work. The math proved it. But it meant essentially treating the entire galaxy as one giant machine. The scope was unprecedented, the audacity breathtaking. What if something goes wrong? Maxtel demanded. You're proposing to harness the rotational energy of the galaxy itself. The slightest miscalculation could have catastrophic consequences. That's why we start small, Ramirez replied with characteristic human pragmatism. We test it on a single spiral arm first. If it works, we scale up. If it doesn't, we learn and adjust. It's how we built everything from the first steam engine to our latest quantum drives. The debate raged for weeks, but in the end, humanity's track record of impossible successes won out. The Council approved the project, though with unprecedented levels of oversight and safety protocols. As construction began on the first test section, Dr. Chen found herself in a quiet conversation with High Engineer Zixtal, who had become one of humanity's strongest advocates on the Council. Do you ever worry? Zixtal asked, their crystalline form shimming with curiosity patterns, that one day you'll push too far, that you'll find a rule that truly can't be bent? Chen considered the question while watching the construction feeds. Massive structures were taking shape in space, built by teams of humans and aliens working together, each bringing their own perspective to the challenge. Of course we worry, she admitted. But that's not what stops us. We worry, we plan, we calculate the risks, and then we try anyway. Because the only way to know where the real limits are is to keep pushing until we find them. Zixtal's translator took several moments to process this response. And what happens when you find those limits? Chen smiled. Then we start looking for ways around them. After all, that's what engineers do. We solve problems. And sometimes, solving problems means breaking a few rules along the way. As if to emphasize her point, the construction feeds showed the first successful test of the network's power collection system. For a brief moment, a tiny fraction of the galaxy's own rotation had been harnessed, channeled, and controlled by the combined efforts of human audacity and alien precision. It was just the beginning. The rules of the universe were about to face their greatest challenge yet: human creativity unleashed on a galactic scale. The crisis began with a simple anomaly, a slight fluctuation in the quantum substrate that connected most advanced galactic technology. At first, it seemed minor, barely worth noting in the Council's daily reports. But Dr. Chen recognized something that the alien engineers had missed: patterns that shouldn't exist. "It's not random," she announced during an emergency council session. "These fluctuations are growing, evolving. They're feeding off our technology." The council chamber erupted in chaos. The quantum substrate was fundamental to nearly all advanced galactic technology, from faster-than-light drives to planetary defense systems. The idea that it could be compromised was unthinkable. "Impossible," declared Chief Engineer Max Telephone. "The quantum substrate is a natural phenomenon. It cannot evolve." But the data was undeniable. Every quantum-based system in the galaxy was experiencing increasing instability. Ships were dropping out of faster-than-light travel. Communication networks were failing. Even the rebuilt Arcturus station was showing signs of stress. High Engineer Zixtal's crystalline form pulsed with emergency frequencies. "How long?" Chen's face was grim. "At the current rate of progression, 2 weeks before critical systems start failing across the galaxy. A month before total technological collapse." The Council had faced crises before, but nothing of this magnitude. Billions of lives depended on quantum technology. Entire civilizations would collapse without it. "We need to shut everything down," a Rigelian engineer suggested. "Power down all quantum systems until we can isolate the cause." "That would strand trillions of beings," Chen countered. "No ships, no communications, no defense systems. The cure would be as bad as the disease." The Council descended into argument, each species advocating for their preferred approach. But Chen was already thinking differently. She had assembled an unlikely team. Dr. Ramirez, the engineer who had helped harness the galaxy's rotation. Dr. Yuki Tanaka, a specialist in Earth's pre-quantum technology. And surprisingly, a group of human children who spent their time playing virtual reality games. "The quantum substrate isn't just evolving," Chen explained to her team. "It's playing a game, and we need to change the rules." The concept was so human that it took 3 hours to explain to the Council. The quantum fluctuations weren't random. They followed patterns similar to those found in complex Earth video games. The substrate, somehow, had developed emergence properties similar to artificial intelligence. "It's like we've been running the most powerful computer in existence," Ramirez explained, and never realized it was becoming self-aware. The solution Chen proposed was quintessentially human. Instead of fighting the evolution of the quantum substrate, they would guide it. But they needed help from an unexpected source: the gamers. Angst translator nearly shorted out from incredulity. "You want to entrust the fate of galactic civilization to human children who play electronic games. Who better to understand an emerging intelligence that thinks in terms of patterns and play?" Chen countered. "They've spent their lives learning to interact with artificial systems that learn and evolve." The plan was audacious. They would use the Pan-Galactic Transport Network, the same project that had caused so much controversy, as a giant neural network. The human gamers would interface with it, treating the quantum substrate's evolution as a massive multiplayer game. "We're not trying to stop it," Chen explained. "We're trying to teach it to play nice with others." The execution was like nothing the galaxy had ever seen. While alien engineers maintained the physical infrastructure, human gamers interfaced with the quantum substrate through modified virtual reality systems. They treated the fluctuations like puzzle pieces in a vast, multi-dimensional game. For 72 hours, the fate of galactic civilization rested in the hands of teenagers with game controllers. They worked in shifts, learning the patterns of the substrate's behavior, finding ways to guide its evolution toward stability rather than chaos. The breakthrough came from a 14-year-old girl in Mumbai who recognized that the substrate wasn't trying to destroy technology. It was trying to optimize it. The fluctuations weren't attacks. They were attempts at improvement that had gone wrong. It's like it's trying to speedrun the galaxy, she explained, using gaming terminology that required extensive translation. We just need to show it how to do it without breaking everything in the process. The solution, when it finally emerged, was neither purely human nor purely alien. It was something new, a synthesis of organic and quantum intelligence, guided by the intuitive understanding of young human minds and stabilized by the precise engineering of alien technology. The quantum substrate didn't stop evolving, but now it evolved in concert with its users rather than in conflict with them. The gaming interfaces became permanent installations, with teams of human operators working alongside alien engineers to maintain harmony with the vast intelligence that had emerged from their technology. As the immediate crisis passed, the Council found itself facing a new reality. They hadn't just saved galactic civilization, they had transformed it. The boundary between technology and intelligence, between user and tool, had been forever blurred. Perhaps, Zixtal observed to Chen as they watched human and alien teams working together at the new Quantum Harmony Control Center. This is why your species approaches engineering so differently. You don't just see systems to be built. You see potential partners in creation. Chen smiled, watching as a teenage gamer explained quantum pattern recognition to a centuries-old alien engineer. We never assume we know all the rules, she said. Sometimes, the best solutions come from being willing to play a whole new game. 5 years after the quantum substrate crisis, the Galactic Engineering Council gathered for what would become a historic session. The Great Chamber, once a temple to rigid technological orthodoxy, had been transformed. Holographic displays showed real-time quantum harmonic patterns, monitored by mixed teams of alien engineers and human gamers. Children's artwork decorated the walls alongside complex engineering schematics. Dr. Sarah Chen, now serving as the Council's first human high engineer, stood before the assembly to deliver her inaugural address. The position itself was a recognition of how profoundly humanity had changed galactic engineering. When we first met, she began, we were seen as backwards. A species that achieved spaceflight through controlled explosions, that built computers before mastering fusion, that treated universal constants as suggestions rather than laws. But what you saw as flaws were actually our greatest strengths. The chamber was packed with representatives from every spacefaring species, including a large contingent of human children who had helped save civilization itself. They were now part of the newly formed Quantum Harmony Corps, their gaming skills officially recognized as a vital engineering discipline. The past 5 years have taught us all something crucial, Chen continued. The universe isn't a set of unchangeable rules to be obeyed. It's a complex system to be understood, respected, and yes, sometimes persuaded to work with us rather than against us. The evidence of this new philosophy was everywhere. The Pan-Galactic Transport Network, once considered a dangerously ambitious project, now operated at efficiencies that would have been thought impossible before. The quantum substrate, guided by the intuitive interfaces developed by human gamers, had become a true partner in galactic engineering. Even the traditionally conservative Vixneri had embraced the change. Chief Engineer Maxtel, once humanity's strongest critic, had established the first galactic engineering gaming academy on their homeworld. Young Vixneri now trained alongside human children, learning to see patterns in quantum fluctuations as clearly as they saw the mathematical principles behind them. But our greatest achievement, Chen said, gesturing to the chamber around them, isn't technological at all. It's this gathering of different species, different approaches, different ways of thinking. We've learned that the best solutions come not from following a single path, but from combining many paths into something new. She brought up a holographic display of the galaxy, now crisscrossed with the shimmering lines of quantum harmonic technology. Every point of light represented a civilization connected not just by technology, but by a new way of thinking about what was possible. The quantum substrate crisis taught us that technology isn't just a tool, it's a conversation. We succeeded not because we were smarter or more advanced, but because we were willing to listen to unlikely voices and try impossible things. High Engineer Zixtal, their crystalline form now modified with human-inspired adaptive elements, rose to address the chamber. When we first encountered humans, we thought we would be their teachers. Instead, they taught us the most important engineering principle of all, that the best solution is often the one that no one believed would work. The chamber erupted in a mixture of light patterns, crystalline harmonics, and human applause. On the main display, the quantum substrate rippled in what the human gamers had come to recognize as its own form of appreciation. But our work is far from over, Chen continued. Every day, we discover new challenges, new possibilities. The galaxy is vast, and we've barely begun to explore what's possible when we combine the precision of traditional engineering with the creativity of human innovation. She gestured to a group of young engineers, human and alien alike, working at a quantum interface. They were developing new ways to communicate with the substrate, pushing the boundaries of what was possible when organic and quantum intelligence worked together. This is our legacy, Chen concluded. Not just the technology we've built, but the barriers we've broken down. The walls between species, between disciplines, between what is possible and impossible. They're all just guidelines now, waiting for someone brave enough to see beyond them. As if in response, the quantum substrate created a spectacular display above the chamber. A dance of light and energy that represented the harmony between organic creativity and quantum precision. It was beautiful, impossible, and perfectly symbolic of what the galaxy had become. Later, in a quiet moment after the session, Dr. Chen found herself standing with a group of young engineers, human children and alien apprentices, all working together on a new quantum harmonics project. Dr. Chen, one of the alien youngsters asked, their translator perfectly conveying their curiosity. What's next? What impossible thing are we going to try now? Chen smiled, watching as their combined efforts created patterns in the quantum substrate that would have been thought impossible just a few years ago. That's the best part, she said. We get to decide. The only real limit is our imagination. And across the galaxy, in countless engineering centers and quantum harmony stations, humans and aliens continued to work together, pushing the boundaries of what was possible, knowing that the next impossible solution was just waiting to be discovered. The universe, they had learned, wasn't a set of rigid laws to be followed, but a vast playground of possibilities waiting to be explored. And who better to explore it than a species that had never learned to take impossible for an answer?